Welcome, everybody. Neil is traveling, but he joined us video, so I'll make sure, just flag me down if you need me, Neil. I'd like to welcome everybody to the August 15th school board meeting to conduct the business of the district. We do start our meetings off with open forum, and we do have one signature on open forum. But before we have Mr. Schindler come up, I'll remind everyone of our procedures that were approved on 10/4/21. The open public forum will be placed on the agenda for regular board meetings. During this part of each regular school board meeting, up to 30 minutes of time will be allowed for district constituents to address the school board. Each person is asked to identify him or herself by name, and if he or she represents an organization, to name that group. Remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole. Each presentation may have up to 2 minutes of time. The school board will not hear complaints about individual school employees or permit discussions of such matters in an open meeting. No response, reaction, nor action shall necessarily be taken by the board during the open forum portion of the meeting, and the school board will take no action at a meeting on an issue raised for the first time by the public. Mr. Schindler?
Madam Chair, that was an inadvertent, I had no intention.
Oh, okay.
I thought attendees were supposed to sign in, so
Okay.
part of learning procedure, but no, I have no intention of being part of the open forum.
Thank you. All right. We will go ahead and move to approval of today's agenda. What is the wishes of the board?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thanks, Neil. Motion carried. Item number 5, consent items. This is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the consent items? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you. Reports. Item number 6, 6.1, Superintendent Report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nelson, directors, student representatives, and community. Great opportunity. It's been an exciting last couple of weeks for both the community as well as our Lee schools. Last Wednesday, we were excitingly welcomed back the staff at Hammerfield. We had a launch at Hammerfield, which was amazing. And what we did is we started with, and I'll begin my report with our mission, which is to ensure individual academic, social, emotional growth that leads to engaged citizens and lifelong learners. This was a foundation of our launch last Wednesday, and it was a beautiful morning. We greeted the staff with some unique opportunities, and some of those opportunities you'll see in a moment, but the main thing, the next slide, please. It was great to celebrate the staff for their 25 years of service in our Lee schools, so that was a great way to start. We also celebrated with Master's Degree Plus, represented those who've earned their master's degree and beyond. That was a great recognition. But another unique opportunity was our Teacher of the Year, Burke, did have a unicorn. His message was be the one, so we had a unicorn present. It's not often that a new superintendent begins their launch with staff with a unicorn present for the welcome. So that was amazing, which you'll see pictures in a moment. And then also we had teacher grant recognition from the Education Foundation, and a big thank you for that. A couple of the pictures, we had the over 500 staff at Hammerfield on the morning. We then went down to Wind Down Wednesday down at the as a staff, and we were represented for lunch, and we had our Hourly Tiger greet us by boat. So we welcomed the Tiger into the opportunity as well. And then we had the 25-year plus staff on the right, the unicorn in the bottom left, and then you see Burke with the unicorn there center. So it was a great morning to welcome back staff, and it was just a great way to start the new school year. Couple of exciting announcements that we have moving forward is we have the Tiger Trays updates. We've had some contributions of $10,400 towards the Tiger Trays. So we're looking forward to supporting our students as well as our families and caregivers. Albert Lee Education Foundation with $5,000, the Daybreakers Kiwanis $1,000, CCF Bank $2,400, Moose Lodge $1,500, and Women of the Moose $500. So thank you for the donations as we move toward our goal to support our students with the Tiger Tray opportunity starting this year. The next is some exciting updates. We'll no longer have admission for the band, choir, orchestra, and junior choir. That was announced at the study session a couple weeks ago. So it's part of the classroom curriculum. So we'll continue to support our families and our students through our second goal. We'll be offering free breakfast. This has been put out. It's on social media. This will continue as a commit to our students and our families moving forward, and then there will not be an increase in student lunch prices. This is information we've presented to the board, but it's a reminder for the community as we continue to focus on our second goal. To the next exciting piece is this week, we welcome back students. 8th grade orientation is tomorrow at the high school. And then today was a lot of, you'll see in a moment, was a lot of welcome back in orientation. I was at the high school today, and it was amazing to see the number of students and families waiting in line to get their pictures taken, and just the excitement of the families. I was able to talk to a couple families, a little bit of anxiety, but a lot of excitement. Drove by Halverson, didn't quite make it into Halverson, but the parking lot was packed, so it was nice to see. But just to remind our community that buses, you'll see in the lower right, just as a reminder to pay attention, our buses will be on the road starting Wednesday. So it's exciting to welcome back our students on Wednesday. And finally, just some updates. We've had the ECFE, the elementary, the parent-teacher conferences. This will be posted online. We had some Southwest, again, the open house, a high school open house, and some opportunities at some of our different sites, with Friday culminating the Halverson Elementary setting the stage at assembly at 9 a.m. So amazing opportunity to get started. Looking forward to seeing students back and saying it was nice to see staff back. It's just with great excitement we welcome our students back. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Wagner. All right, we're going to do school board reports. Angie, why don't we start with you?
Is this on? I was thinking about this, and this is the first time I'm saying this, but I didn't have any committees to report on this time. So,
We had the Business Ed Committee meeting. I was out of town, so Kim was at that, so I'm sure she'll be able to fill us in. But we've had a lot of good things happening there. Also, the Wind Down Wednesday, we had just gotten back into town, went down there. It was so cool to see the teachers and everyone interacting. Just what a great atmosphere. So really good. Heard nothing but good things about Burke's presentation, your opening presentation, gathering people together. The one I read in the paper and I really liked is we're taking down the barriers, down the fences, and I thought that was really cool. But it's going to be exciting to see the start of the school year.
No committee meetings, but again, the Wind Down Wednesday and seeing everybody back on Wednesday was a lot of fun. It was great to see as many of us that could be there. And again, when I was in my office and all of a sudden I saw this sea of different colored T-shirts, and I think the little gal in the red T-shirts isn't too far away. It was exciting to see so many people and talking to a lot of teachers and staff that hadn't had the opportunity to be there. So it was a great idea, Superintendent Wagner. Thank you.
Neil,
Can you hear me?
we can.
Oh, that's probably too bad. Well, I greet you from the balmy beach of Bethany in Delaware, and I have a few things to report. One, in connection with Section 1AA Minnesota State High School League Committee, which, thanks to Paul Durbin, I am on. We do have an annual Region 1AA committee meeting, a sort of lunch or banquet, a recognition event that will distinguish certain honorees that are yet to be announced. This will be at the Hubble House on October 13th at 11:30, which is going to be interesting because on the same day we have the Education Foundation has its Pathways to Success event at beginning at I think 5:30 at the Cove, so that's going to be an interesting day. The good news from the Section 1AA, we had a fairly, well, it wasn't a long meeting. We had an awful lot of items on the agenda. We do things like establish venues for section meets and so on. But one of the things that I think would interest you is that each of these events and all the Section 1AA events generate income. And if their income exceeds their expenses over a certain amount, the excess is distributed among the schools, which, to get to the bottom line, will amount in a contribution to us a little over $10,000. So we pay a significant amount to be a member of the high school league, but it turns out to be kind of a wash because we get a lot of that back. Now, the Education Foundation, a number of things to report there. Dale Larson contributed $25,000 a while back to support a digital display project at the high school. And like so many other things, that's a bit behind schedule because of a shortage of equipment and parts, I guess. But it's on the way, and we have a couple of high school grads, Erickson and someone else whose name I can't remember, owns a company that's doing this, so they're giving us a very good deal on it. Anyway, they've right now the invoices amount to in the neighborhood of $15,000, and I'm hoping that it will be close to that, which will leave us about around $10,000 to help the district provide for maintenance and upkeep on that project. It'll be wonderful. It'll have an interactive screen right outside the auditorium so that people who visit that area can access just about any information they want. And for our purposes, the Athletic Hall of Fame, distinguished educators, distinguished alumni, all of that will be on display on an interactive screen, which is a lot better than walking around and looking at plaques. Again, we have our reception on October 13th. I've mentioned that several times. We would like it if people would register for that event, and there are forms you can download on our website or on our Facebook page, and we'll do everything we can to make those available. Or we're certainly not going to turn anybody away who just shows up. I think the cost is $20, so it's not an expensive banquet, and it's a nice outing. Another rather significant thing that we have been thinking about for a long time in the foundation is we are the custodians of a lot of scholarships, and so those scholarship funds are oftentimes a product of investments from the St. Paul Foundation, which deals with charitable funds. And so we get from the St. Paul Foundation the earnings of those scholarship endowments that are invested there, and that builds up money in our checking account. And we have, again, talked about this for a long time, because some of those deposits in our checking account are more than is needed to cover the actual scholarships, so they tend to build up. And so, again, to make a long story short, we have according to our treasurer, Steve Tufty, who's a financial genius, we have discovered that we can reinvest in those endowment funds at St. Paul Foundation over $90,000. No reason for it to sit in our checking account and earn no return. So that should help pad those scholarship funds going on into the future. We made some donations to the school district. One of them was included in Ron's report. We contributed $5,000 to the Tiger Trays. In addition to that, we will contribute $15,000 to help cover the cost of waiving the student activity fees, and $2,000 to the middle school, because now that the COVID era hopefully is over, our students now have an opportunity to attend the rendezvous. It's a wonderful educational experience that is provided by the rendezvous people, but it involves a little bit of a cost, estimated at a little less than $3,000, so we're contributing $2,000 to help that. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Just a couple things. I did attend the business ed committee. I had to leave early, but the first part where I attended, we discussed now that we can be back in the community after COVID and have some interaction with the business community. We're planning on hosting some lunch and learns around business and education. So that might be workforce or mental health in the workplace, those kind of things. So you'll be seeing things in some advertisements through the chamber and things, and hopefully the school district will also be promoting that. And then also you'll start to see in the newspaper some articles that we're going to focus in on different CTE, career and technical education programs of study, where we might have during Manufacturing Month, we may have an article from the Business Ed Committee. So you'll be seeing some of that. And like Dennis said, that's a committee that kind of had to wait it out a little. And so now you'll start to see some movement there. Also, I want to thank Anna for stepping in for Ashley today, and welcome to the district. And then also, I'll just move right into, I'm also on the Ed Foundation, so thanks, Neil, for covering those things. But I want to welcome our two new school board representatives from the high school. We have Marissa Hansen with us and Rachel Doppelhammer. And I'll let you guys just take a moment. Don't feel like you have to give a report, but just kind of give you a moment to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe what you're involved in the school.
If I can turn it on.
There should be a little red light.
It's hard to see. Just try speaking and then we'll go
Hello?
from there.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Marissa Hansen. I am in tennis, mock trial. I managed boys track last year. What else am I in? Link crew. I'm going to be the editor of the school's newspaper this year. What else am I in? I feel like I'm missing something. Well, I think that show choir. Yes, I'm in choir and show choir. Thank you, Rachel. I am the senior school board rep, so I'm going into my senior year. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
My name is Rachel Doppelhammer, and I'm going to be the junior rep. Yeah, there we go. So obviously I'm going in my junior year. I'm involved in hockey and tennis, and I'm a captain on both of those teams. I'm also in Leadership Council, FCA, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Student Council, Link Crew, Wellbeing Club, Managed Boys Tennis Team, yep. I think that's it. But yeah, I'm really excited to be the school board representative for my grade this year. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for being here. We're excited to have you part of our team this next year. All right, we'll move on to Safe and Healthy Schools, where we don't have any agenda items under number 7, so we'll move to number 8, Curriculum and Instruction, and that's our administrators from the different buildings. So I think we'll take that as an action item all at the end, but if each administrator could just just start to file in, and then at the end we'll ask for the board for an action. Welcome, Tanya.
Thanks for having me. Tanya Franks, principal at Halverson Elementary, representing our elementary team at Halverson, Hawthorne, Lakeview, and Sibley. Very minimal updates to our district-wide elementary handbook this year. Just wanted to go through a few things that we thought we might highlight as things that we're focusing on for this school year in helping our families and our students. First one we thought we'd highlight is looking at attendance. They're in alphabetical order, Anna. Okay. So the first one is attendance there. Right there. Perfect. So no change to attendance, but we really wanted to point out that we're working very diligently on that purposeful connection with our families regarding attendance and the importance of attendance at school. We know that research shows that a child's attendance record might be or is a contributing factor to their success in school. So being very purposeful in that communication with our families. As we speak, our teachers are highlighting that as part of their parent-teacher interview process as well. So continuing to work with our families and getting our students in school as much as possible. And if we're noticing some patterns, what can we do as schools to help them with that? So one thing we wanted to point out. The next one is building and grounds. This one is one small change. You'll notice that under dismissal for every day of the week, it has a 2:45 dismissal with our buses leaving at 2:50. Last year, our buses departed at 2:55. So the reason for this change is to match the 330 minutes in the teacher contract, which is different than last year's 335. So that is one change this year. Another highlight for you under emergency procedures. This, again, is not a change, but something that with our level 1 safe, supportive, collaborative culture, we want to make sure that we're being very purposeful in communicating with our families what our emergency procedures are, what are our safety procedures, not only for the things that we've all done, tornado, fire drills, but we know the reality of our world today is being safe in terms of if we were to have an intruder or active shooter. And so are we clearly communicating with our families? What do those drills look like? What will your students experience during those drills? And how do we help support them both before, during, and after? So just a thing we wanted to highlight as being purposeful with our families. We will come back to also surveying our families at our October conferences in that level 1 high reliability schools of safe supportive culture. So that ties back to emergency procedures as well. The last thing we wanted to highlight way down at the end, Anna, under visitors and guests. I've heard a few of you mention in light of COVID lifting a little bit here. That's something we're excited about at the elementaries is being able to have volunteers back in our buildings again. So a little bit of a change there in some of those COVID amendments are lifted out of our handbook now. Just we'll continue to monitor that on the ground with our school nurses in Freeborn County Public Health. But as of right now, we will be accepting visitors and volunteers again. And then I already mentioned the COVID amendments have been removed. So what questions do you have for me? If any. Good. All right. I'll let Tyler come up next.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tyler Johnson. I'm the principal at Southwest Middle School. We only have 2 updates here on our student handbook. The first is located on page 8. We've included language in on theft. And so you can kind of read through that. I won't read through all of that. We didn't have an increase per se. I mean, last year was my first year in this role, but there's 4 separate instances where we had some minor stealing that happened. And so I just wanted to make sure that that language was clear in our handbook, and then also just to make sure that our students are held accountable for the actions that they take. The other one was a minor word change as well, and that is on page 9, located in right under the 4th offense there, where it says use of any device to record or take pictures is prohibited on school property. Before it just said school building. So again, I just wanted to make sure that it was understood that anywhere on school property it is not okay to take videos, pictures without permission. So those are the updates to our student handbook. Is there any questions in regards to the student handbook for me? All right.
One quick question, and
Yes.
I don't know if this might not be related to the handbook, but bullying was one thing that I kept hearing about last year from the middle school. Are procedures changing at all with that, or?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So we are in a new SEL curriculum. It's called Why Try, and it literally is to address the situation of asking students why they should try. And so it tackles SEL curriculum, trauma, gets students to motivate. So our social workers, counselor, and our resource specialists all went to training this summer and have developed a curriculum where they will go into our Advisory Plus classrooms to teach the curriculum in there as well. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Chris Dibble, high school principal. 2 changes, one significant, one insignificant. The first change comes to, it said in the handbook that any phone confiscated will be turned into the attendance office. We dropped the word attendance. Phones come to the office when confiscated, which we hope will not happen very often. We too are starting with the advisory program, a new curriculum where we don't want to fight phones. We want to teach students to use phones appropriately. And so we have come to the conclusion that phones aren't going anywhere. They seem to be around to stay. So we would like to teach the skills necessary during our advisories and in our classes that phones are used responsibly instead of not using them at all. Our second, that's a kind of a bigger change, is we are going to allow the students to wear their hats and hoods this year. The reason being, Ron and I sat down and we talked about what the school looks like in reflecting our community. And as you walk around the community and you go into restaurants, you go into theaters, the hats are there. It is a part of our culture. It's a part of our community. And when you start every day with a kid walking through the door and telling them, "Hi, I'm glad you're here, take your hat off," it starts us on a negative foot. And so we are going to try this year. The wording in there, if you go down to dress code there, we changed the wording to we have to be able to see eyes and ears in any situation. So if the hood's up over the ears, we have to be able to see that you're not wearing earbuds and that you can hear us. And then we can see your eyes and we know that you're paying attention to what we're doing, or we can see who you are. It used to be a security issue. To tell you the truth, I can identify a student by hat way faster than I can by face at this point in life, knowing these students. So that's one significant change we made. We are now in alignment with 11 of the 12 Big 9 schools. It was Mankato West and us were the only 2 left that were not allowing hats. So in making this move, we're meeting our students where they are. It takes out some of that, boy, do I just skip school because I got up later? Can I throw a hat on and go? And so we're going to see how this works, and I think it'll be a positive move forward. In surveying the staff last year, it was the second to the bottom in terms of concerns, having do hats. The other one was bringing backpacks to the classroom, which we did last year as well, and we'll continue to do.
I just wanted to, the first one you addressed, the phones. Are you concerned, or maybe what is the approach with the faculty as it relates to, because that seems a little subjective, right? Like that phone is being disruptive or it's not, you know?
It is the
So-
number one concern in the same
Okay,
survey
okay.
of our staff. And so as a group, we're just working together. The discussion is ongoing. What's working in your class? What's not? We do have some maybe we can bring you guys into this. Some teachers do a good job. You know, they have a pouch on the wall and the phones go in there. Well, it takes a matter of 4 minutes until some kid who doesn't put their pouch in realizes whose phone is there, and now all the phones are going off. So it's another distraction. A lot of teachers just have, you know what, for the first 15 minutes, we're going to do direct instruction. Please put your phones away. The phones are away. And then you can get them out. You know what? If you need to check something, please wait to the 15 minutes, make it work. Do you guys have anything to add on how it works? It's very individualized in the classroom.
I feel like there's a lot of fighting against the wall pouches. The teachers are very like on them for a while, and then they let like one crack of someone not doing it, and then it all just goes out the window. And that happened in my college class actually multiple times. And I feel like there's a line between us not wanting to be too strict about it, because we're like, at the end of the day, it's phones. If they're not going to listen, we've already lost them. But it's like we also want to like have structure, so it's like that weird line of when can you give and when you can't, and like sometimes you just can't at all, but you don't want to be like the mean people that are like, no phones. So, do you have anything, Rachel?
Yeah, I think it's important that we learn how to be responsible with our own phones, and if we choose to be on our phones instead of doing work, then that's on us. But yeah, a lot of teachers have different rules regarding phones. And also, I think our phones can be a good tool to help us. Like, I like to listen to music while I work. That helps me. And I know it does a lot of other people. And sometimes it just is a waste of time to put our phones in the pouches because it's a big fight and it's taking away time from our learning. So I think it's important to learn how to be responsible with our phones.
Most of the pouches are down. I
Yeah.
saw that in touring the rooms, most of the pouches have disappeared. So one of the reasons that we're going to be working with students and telling them about the cell phones is that the reason we're fighting you on it, and that's what it feels like, is because we know they're distracting and they take away from the engagement of the classroom. But I like to tell a story at the senior dinner dance last year. We had 65, 70 seniors there dancing, and not one phone made an appearance on the dance floor. If you looked at the tables, 60 to 70 phones sitting on the table. So what we have to do is figure out a way to engage kids to the point where we are more exciting than the phone. Still working on that part, but we will do our best to do it.
Thanks, Chris. I knew that work was happening, and I wanted to make sure that we talked about that.
Yeah, if we do come up with the plan, that millionaires instantly,
Yeah.
because it's a tough subject right now. So.
All right. Any other questions or comments to Chris?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is an action item. Is there a motion?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
thank you, Vice Chair. Just before you go into the motion, I do want to reiterate and thank the administrators for the work around the handbook and a couple things. Attendance in the elementary, absolutely a focus, but getting the students there is the first piece, and it's providing a high-quality learning opportunity for students is absolutely our focus. So thank you for that. Doubling down and working with the community, I think that's absolutely essential, working with families and caregivers. Southwest, yes, really being proactive and supporting the students and working with the students when they make those choices. And you heard a couple times with the advisory, ensuring that goes back to building those foundations of relationships. And with the high school, and I think that Rachel, you said it very well as Principal Dibble, it's really supporting the students in their identity and informing and working with the students to ensure that they feel supported and know that the phone is a tool, but it's not a battle. It's what we need to do to engage our students and provide the opportunity for the students to be who they need to be successful. The hats, that's not the first thing that a student should hear walking through the door. Please take off your hat or take off your hat. It's good morning, welcome, so glad you're here. It's in supporting our students as they come to school. And yes, if they didn't have an opportunity to do what they needed to in that morning with their hair or they woke up late, having the students come to school, we don't want that to be a barrier, but we want to support our students. So it's not like we're all of a sudden releasing any type of responsibility. We're working to lift up the responsibility of our youth, ensuring that we incorporate their voice and support our young adults as they learn. So thank you for that.
It is motioned by Bruce and seconded by Dennis that we approve the handbook updates by the building administrators. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to effective and efficient operations. Kathy is our presenter, and we'll take each of these policies on their own. Vote that way, so we'll let Kathy start.
I left my phone at my chair because policies are so engaging. I don't like to be disturbed. But so, as we talked, in January, MSBA notified school districts that they were doing a deep review and revision of existing policies. In light of the number of updates, MSBA organized these updates into 4 units in order of significance. So tonight, we are going to take a look at the first unit. Because the revisions in each of the 4 units reflect legal changes that the Minnesota legislature adopted or update references rather than substantive policy language, a school board may adopt the revisions in a single meeting pursuant to MSBA Model Policy 208. If a policy is modified with minor changes that do not affect the substance of the policy or because of a legal change over which the school board has no control, the modified policy may be approved at one meeting at the discretion of the school board. So I'll be asking you to accept these changes tonight. So we are starting with Unit 1, which involves 6 policies. The Minnesota legislature reorganized the Maltreatment of Minors Act by moving it from the Criminal Law Chapter 626 to a Public Health Chapter 260E. So these policies that we're going to look at are a reflection of the movement of the Maltreatment of Minors policy from criminal to public health policy. So we're going to start with 211. Policy 211 has some very minor changes. You'll see that instead of using the words as to, they're using the words about, spelling out the word Minnesota, statutes, subdivision, using language such as instead of he or she, using language as the school board member or the employee, again spelling out statute, removing old statute and adding new statute. Under data practices, again spelling out Minnesota, chapter, code. Instead of using language it is the policy of the school district, they've shortened that to school. And then on page 3, again, spelling out language, adjusting the beginning of different sentences. So when they moved the language, most of the language of the statute stayed, but they felt the need to update and provide some clarity. On page 3, you'll see that it's talking specifically about criminal investigations. And I know there were some questions about, this is not a change, but this is under criminal investigations, talking about questioning. And then again, spelling out statute. And then getting rid of the old statute number and adding 260E. And then under data practices, adding juvenile justice language, and then again adjusting, spelling out Minnesota instead of abbreviating, spelling out statute, chapter, etc. So any questions on that statute? Hearing none, we'll go on to 414. 414 is the large policy on mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse. And I did also send all of you the definitions in statute defining what maltreatment and neglect are. They are not listed or defined in the policy, but that is referenced in the statute. So again, large number here is moving things around, getting rid of 626.556 and adding 260E. Exchanging that for which. You'll see that on page 2, again, getting rid of the language child protection and adding the new language from statute 260C, juvenile safety and placement. Then as we move down through many of these changes, you'll see that you'll underline and then some crossed out. Almost all of these were in a different place in the old statute, and they are still in the statute but moved to another part of the statute. So mental injury is defined actually later in the old policy and moved up. Down to the bottom of page 2, you'll see under F1, that language is simply moved down from 1 to 2, but it's the same language. Again, getting away from his or her and using the language of the child. In several places in these statutes, they've, for instance, on page 3 under 5, they refer to, in this case, the discussion of controlled substance, and they clarify it by indicating that is defined as state law. And like the question about what is maltreatment, neglect, it's defined other places in state law. Then you'll see under neglect, there's a clarification there on the previous statute does not occur solely because the child's parent, guardian, or other person responsible for the child's care in good faith selects and depends upon spiritual means or prayer for treatment or care of disease or remedial care of the child in lieu of medical care. And the question arose from a board member, does that mean that something else has to be there in addition? And the school social workers clarified that yes. So in addition to what is highlighted there or underlined, there needs to be something else that constitutes neglect, and that's defined in the statute that was sent to you. Person responsible for the child's care on page 4 is simply moved from another part of the statute. You'll see some adjustments under subdivisions. Again, those were changed in the new statute, but the language is the same. A lot of switching of the word which for that. And then instead of using neglect or abuse separately, they use the word maltreatment. Down on the bottom of page 5, threatened injury is that language is elsewhere in the old policy and just moved to section M. And then on page 6, you'll see L is the new H, and M is then moved up to M. So just some adjusting of that as the policy changed. There is some, in the reporting procedures, we know that the Minnesota Department of Education has a reporting form, as does Freeborn County. And we are going to take the Minnesota Department of Education reporting form, as they are asking that we file all reports, not only locally with Freeborn County, but we also file them with the Minnesota Department of Education. So our school social workers are, and the forms are not that much different, but if the state form suffices, and then we just do an addendum of what Freeborn County has asked for, we would just have to complete one form, and then we can submit that to the Department of Education. So that is an adjustment for us here in Albert Lea. So in reporting procedures, the agency responsible for assessing or investigated the report for us, that is Freeborn County. The procedure to make an oral report immediately is our current procedure, so there's no change there. They changed some language in item G on page 7. Instead of, they use the word retaliate for employees rather than will not adversely affect the reporter's employment. So employers cannot retaliate, and that now is in statute for reporting in good faith. Page 8, discuss investigation, and again gets rid of the language neglect, physical or sexual abuse, and uses the language maltreatment. They also get rid of the language perpetrator, and they now use the language alleged offender. And you'll see that in multiple places. And then on page 10, you'll see the striking of the old reporting of maltreatment of minors and reporting of prenatal exposure to controlled substances, and adding the new 260E reporting of maltreatment of minors. So that was a significant change at the legislature to move that from criminal to public health, and that is why all of these policies are being changed from that significant move. But that is the most significant policy. Moving on to employee and student relationships, that is policy 423. Again, the change is on page 3, getting rid of the language Board of Teaching and referring to Minnesota Professional Educator Licensing and Standards Board, referred to as PELSB, and then citing the reporting of maltreatment of minors in the legal references and moving to the 260E from 626.556. Interviews of students by outside agencies, policy 519. Again, we're talking about interviews conducted under the Maltreatment of Minors Act. Not all kinds of interviews, but just interviews under this statute. Again, removing the old citation and adding the new on multiple places in this policy. And that is all that's changed there. And then 532, the last policy, has to deal with using peace officers and crisis teams on students with IEPs. And so you'll see some, again, changing of some language. And in talking with school social workers, they sent some information to you on, that on the second page, talking about it's necessary to protect a student or other individual from physical injury. And really the intent is to protect the student. And sometimes things get damaged in classrooms, but the intent is to protect the student. And so some of that language in this policy is changed so that we do everything we can to protect that student from injury. Substantial changes under C and reasonable force. And so they've defined reasonable force, identified that corporal punishment is prohibited by Minnesota statute, requiring a child to assume and maintain a specified physical position is inappropriate, and then they continue to define those items that were made in addition to statute 260E, things we shouldn't be doing to students. And I think this is how most school districts operate, and certainly as we move and talk about restrictive procedures, this is now defined in statute. So it is pretty explicit. And then an additional reporting procedure, which is under item G, about reporting restrictive procedures to the Minnesota Department of Education January 15th, April 15th, July 15th, and October 15th of each year. So that is an addition to made in statute that is now in policy. And restrictive procedures are only done by trained personnel in the school system, and that is operated and under our executive director of special services in that department, and all those staff are trained. So those are all due to that change in maltreatment of minors, and I appreciate MSBA. This is all of their work, none of ours. We couldn't do that locally. So really appreciate the work of MSBA to keep not only our policies in lines, but how we operate our schools and what we do and how we work with students. And this was an important action taken by the legislature, and so this adjustment of policies is occurring across the state. Questions? That's a lot. And thank you to Angie and Jill who were able to attend the meeting where we first looked at these and had some good questions that we were able to get some answers, I think, for you from.
How many units will be coming through? Unit 1?
I think there's 6 or 7. The next one will be in September, and that is 13 policies will be coming through. And those are all related to students' curriculum and those kinds of things. And my comrade back there, Mary Jo, will be bringing those forward. Those are on student curriculum and instruction.
One quick question I thought of is we're seeing a lot of word changing
Mm-hmm.
from the state on how everything is. I'm guessing we have many policies where instead of persons or child, it's saying other. Are we okay waiting and just taking them one at a time as we do it, or is there a way we can just do a blanket where we get those corrected?
Yeah, so that is that's part of what this attempt is to do these all at once. Some of those were really insignificant changes. So, yes, I hope.
And then are these we just do as one?
You could do this as one under policy 208, which will be coming up next round to be some adjustments in that policy as well.
Is an action item, and we initially talked about doing each one individually, but because they're all under that same maltreatment of a minor, I think we could probably just do one.
I would move approval of the policies as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been motioned by Dennis and second by Bruce to go ahead and approve the policies up for action. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everyone. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to remind everyone of our mission to ensure individual academic, social, and emotional growth that leads to engaged citizens and lifelong learners. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 6th. It is at 5 o'clock, and that is a study session. Meeting's adjourned.